It started like any ordinary day in the outer regions of known space. Most of the galactic fleets were busy with their own affairs. Each empire confident in its strength, each world secure behind shields and patrols. But on that day, something impossible appeared. Sensors across multiple star systems detected a single object that had no origin, no travel path, and no recognizable signature. It was a warship, massive and silent. It belonged to Earth, a world that was known to very few beyond its own system. At first, the readings were dismissed as errors. Sensor malfunctions happened often in deep space. But when every observatory, every fleet scanner, and every civilian probe reported the same thing, confusion turned into unease. How could a warship appear where no warp paths, jump gates, or wormholes existed? How could Earth, a planet regarded as primitive by galactic standards, suddenly field a ship capable of being detected across multiple systems? Experts argued, theorized, and debated. But no explanation could satisfy the evidence. The warship did not send any communication. There were no signals, no greetings, no identification. It simply hung in space, perfectly still, as if observing the galaxy and waiting for someone to notice. For hours, fleets of other worlds circled cautiously, scanning and probing, trying to determine if it was hostile or simply lost. The humans on Earth remained silent, leaving the galaxy to fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. Leaders of the known. Empires began to convene emergency councils. The idea of a new power rising from a planet they considered backward was threatening. Diplomatic channels buzzed with messages, each one more urgent than the last. But no message reached the warship. It ignored every attempt at contact, every call for identification. Its presence alone became a statement. It existed. It would not move until the galaxy understood why. Galactic media picked up the story. Journalists and news networks broadcast the incredible event to millions of citizens across the stars. Speculation ran wild. Some believed Earth had secretly developed advanced technology far beyond anyone's imagination. Others thought it was a rogue experiment gone wrong. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some said it was a warning. Others whispered that it was the beginning of a war no one could stop. Yet no one could explain why Earth had chosen this moment, or why it had remained hidden for so long. Meanwhile, military analysts began examining the ship's capabilities from a distance. They observed its energy signature, its size, and its potential weapon systems. Nothing matched any known designs in the galaxy. It seemed both ancient and futuristic, a combination that defied conventional engineering principles. Analysts debated endlessly about what this ship was capable of. Was it a single-use weapon? A mobile fortress? Or something far more intelligent than any existing military asset? Despite all the fear and uncertainty, one thing became clear. The galaxy had underestimated Earth. The planet's reputation for internal conflict, political instability, and modest technology had blinded the empires to the possibility that humans could create something extraordinary. The warship's sudden appearance shattered every assumption, forcing leaders to reconsider not just Earth's power, but humanity itself. As the hours passed, the warship remained still. Fleets of other civilizations tried to encircle it to assert dominance, to show that the galaxy still controlled the situation. But the ship did not react. It emitted no signals, launched no drones, and made no aggressive moves. Its presence was both a challenge and a mystery, a silent demonstration that Earth had arrived on its own terms. Every attempt to provoke it ended in frustration, leaving the galaxy unsure whether it faced a threat, a guardian, or something entirely beyond comprehension. The people of Earth watched from a distance. Fully aware of the panic their warship had caused, they did not celebrate, did not make announcements, and did not seek recognition. They had built the ship for reasons of survival, not conquest. Every generation of humans who contributed to its creation had understood the stakes, if humanity ever needed to stand alone. It would need a presence in space that could not be ignored. This was that moment. On the other side of the galaxy, civilians who had never known fear in their daily lives suddenly felt it. The existence of the warship changed the balance of power. It reminded everyone that even the most stable empires could be challenged by a single determined civilization. Philosophers, scientists, and historians began discussing the implications. How could a world thought to be weak produce something so formidable? What did this mean for the future of interstellar relations? The questions multiplied faster than the answers. Throughout the first day of its appearance, the warship continued to hang silently in space. It did not pursue resources, it did not attack, and it did not expand. Its mere presence disrupted communications, provoked panic, and forced the galaxy to face an uncomfortable truth. They had assumed Earth was small, unimportant, and easily overlooked. They had been wrong, and the consequences of that misjudgment had only just begun. By the time the first galactic night fell across multiple systems, fleets had withdrawn to defensive positions. Political leaders were forced to hold emergency sessions to reassess alliances and strategies. The warship had achieved what no fleet or ambassador could. It had united enemies in fear and curiosity, reshaped priorities overnight, and demonstrated the power of presence over action in the quiet moments that followed. A few analysts speculated that the warship was not just a machine. Perhaps it represented humanity's resolve, its unwillingness to surrender to circumstance, and its determination to survive against impossible odds. The idea seemed almost poetic, but it also carried weight. A civilization capable of building such a ship could not be dismissed, ignored, or underestimated again. The first day ended not with explosions, not with victories or defeats, but with silence. The warship remained in orbit, unchanged, unyielding, and uncommunicative. The galaxy watched, waited, and wondered. And somewhere deep within Earth, the people who built it prepared for what might come next. Knowing that the quiet moment was only the beginning of a story that would change everything, the world had emerged from obscurity, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The galaxy had spent decades under the assumption that Earth was nothing more than a quiet, insignificant planet. Its civilizations were slow to unify, its technology was considered average at best, and its politics were messy and unpredictable. To most observers, it was a world that might survive on its own, but would never influence the stars. When the warship appeared out of nowhere, these assumptions shattered like glass. Leaders across the galaxy were stunned. Advisors and scientists presented long reports, all trying to make sense of how Earth had suddenly produced something so advanced. Many refused to accept the simple truth. Humans had kept their capabilities hidden, building a ship designed to change the balance of power, and now it was here. The arrogance that came from centuries of underestimating Earth evaporated overnight. Now, fear replaced certainty. The first attempts to communicate with the warship were both polite and cautious. Delegations sent messages offering alliances, trade, and respect. Others demanded explanations, trying to assert dominance and intimidate the humans. The warship did not respond. It simply hung in space, silent and unmoving, letting its presence speak louder than any words. This silence frustrated every empire and system that had assumed they were superior. Galactic intelligence agencies scrambled to learn more. Spy probes were launched toward Earth, attempting to trace the ship's origin, but they met interference. The warship seemed capable of detecting and neutralizing them without aggression. Observers were puzzled. It did not attack or destroy, but it stopped any attempt to observe or intrude. Every attempt to gather data ended in silence or confusion. The galaxy realized that Earth had prepared for this moment with careful precision. Meanwhile, analysts began reviewing every record, every signal, and every piece of history from Earth they could access. They noticed patterns that suggested humans had been quietly studying the stars for centuries. They had faced threats, survived disasters, and learned to adapt in ways that seemed impossible to outsiders. The more the galaxy investigated, the more it realized that Earth's reputation had been built on misunderstanding. Humans had not been weak. They had been patient, observant, and strategic. As fleets waited for orders, panic began to spread in some systems. Governments that once claimed superiority now doubted themselves. Fleet commanders questioned whether they had trained their personnel for a reality in which a single, unannounced warship could shift the balance of power. Scholars, journalists, and civilians debated endlessly about the warship's purpose. Was it a threat, a defensive measure, or something else entirely? The galaxy could not agree, and uncertainty spread faster than fear itself. Attempts to provoke a response failed repeatedly. Fleets moved closer, scanning and signaling. Yet the ship remained calm, patient, and unyielding. It did not attack. It did not retreat. Its presence alone became a statement. Every empire understood instinctively that this was not a display of arrogance. It was a demonstration of capability, of resolve, and of the potential for humans to act decisively if pushed. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and the consequences were becoming clear. Diplomatic channels were flooded with messages. Some empires suggested immediate negotiations. Others called for combined fleets to threaten Earth. Still, no one could agree on a unified plan, because the warship refused to participate in the political games that defined interstellar relations. Its silence forced leaders to confront a truth they had ignored for centuries. Humans did not play by the same rules. On Earth, the builders of the warship watched the galaxy's reaction with quiet determination. They understood that the world had remained unnoticed for a reason. For generations, humans had focused on survival, science, and strategy rather than glory or expansion. Now, the moment had arrived where they might need to show the galaxy that Earth could defend itself, not out of ambition, but out of necessity. The ship was the embodiment of this principle, a testament to patience, intelligence, and restraint. Across the stars, civilians observed the unfolding situation with a mix of awe and fear. News networks broadcast images, analyses, and expert commentary, although much of it was speculation. Ordinary citizens debated in forums, in homes, and in public squares about the warship's meaning. Fear was universal, but so was curiosity. Some admired the humans' apparent foresight and capability. Others worried about what the sudden emergence of this unknown power might mean for their futures. The warship had changed the galaxy's perception of Earth. Overnight, fleet exercises designed to test the ship's limits failed in subtle ways. Every probe launched, every scan attempted, was neutralized without aggression. The humans had designed a ship that could prevent conflict before it started, using strategy and technology rather than brute force. Observers began to realize that this ship was not merely a weapon. It was a demonstration of control, of foresight, and of the consequences of underestimating a determined civilization. As the hours and days passed, debates shifted from fear to respect. Analysts began to acknowledge that Earth had not acted out of aggression. The humans had not demanded territory, resources, or influence. They had appeared silently and decisively to show that Earth would not be ignored. The galaxy, for the first time, had to consider humans as equals, if not superiors. In strategic and technological capability, this realization rippled through every empire, every fleet, and every council, forcing leaders to rethink their assumptions. Some historians noted that the event marked a turning point. For centuries, civilizations had grown comfortable in their assumptions about smaller, less advanced planets. Earth's sudden emergence challenged the fundamental idea that military might and political influence were predictable. The galaxy had believed that its balance of power was stable. The warship proved that a single act from an unexpected source could destabilize everything. In the first week of the warship's appearance, fleets and governments began cautiously backing away. They no longer assumed Earth could be ignored or intimidated. Messages shifted from demands to requests. Analysts worked to understand what the humans wanted, even as it became clear that they wanted very little beyond recognition of their existence and capability. Every miscalculation, every underestimate, had been absorbed. And the galaxy's leaders were forced to face the new reality. Within this tense environment, the humans maintained patience. The warship continued to hover silently, unaffected by panic, speculation, or pressure. Its presence reminded the galaxy that the strongest power is not always the one that attacks first. but the one that can survive, endure, and act when necessary. The humans had built something that reflected their values: intelligence, restraint, and the ability to make others reconsider their assumptions. By the end of the second part of this story, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Fear and respect had replaced arrogance. Humans were no longer a curiosity or a minor player. They had shown that they could control the situation simply by existing, and that power could take forms other than fleets, empires, or diplomacy. For the first time, the stars themselves were forced to acknowledge that Earth had arrived, and that no empire could ever take the planet lightly again. The warship remained quiet, but its impact would be remembered forever. Days passed with the warship silently observing the galaxy. Its presence alone had changed the way every empire thought about power, but the calm was not permanent. There were fleets that refused to back down, fleets that believed their weapons and experience could intimidate or test this unknown force. They moved forward, their ships armed with every imaginable weapon, their captains confident that they were facing a simple, isolated opponent. They were wrong. The first clash was subtle. A small fleet approached the warship, scanning for weaknesses. Every sensor reading, every attempt to target systems, was met with precise countermeasures. No lasers, no explosions, no alarms. The fleet found their engines disrupted, their communications jammed, and their navigational systems rendered useless. They drifted, unable to move or act. Crew members tried to understand what had happened, but all instruments indicated normal conditions. The warship had not fired a shot, yet it had rendered them powerless. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Word spread quickly. More fleets tried to challenge the warship, but the results were the same. Ships were disabled, but not destroyed. Crews remained alive, confused and unharmed, yet completely under the control of a force they could not see or touch. It was a new kind of power, one that relied on precision and strategy rather than sheer firepower. The humans on Earth had created something that could end conflicts before they began, and the galaxy was beginning to realize how dangerous that could be. Political leaders convened emergency councils. They debated what to do, how to respond, and how to regain control. Some suggested forming alliances, combining fleets, or even attacking Earth directly. Others argued that such actions would be foolish, that any attempt to use force could result in total disaster. Fear had replaced arrogance, and every decision carried the weight of potential annihilation. Journalists reported live from orbit, describing fleets that had once been considered invincible, now floating helpless in space. Analysts explained that the warship's technology was far beyond anything seen before. It had systems capable of predicting movements, disrupting energy flows, and controlling the immediate environment without firing a single shot. Civilians were captivated and terrified. No one had imagined that a single ship could do what entire fleets could not. The story dominated every communication channel, sparking debates, discussions, and even arguments in homes across multiple star systems. On Earth, the people who had built the warship watched the events unfold. They had designed it with patience, intelligence, and restraint. Every generation that contributed to its creation understood that it was not meant to conquer, but to protect. It was built to show that humans could endure, adapt, and act decisively if necessary. Now, the galaxy was witnessing the result. The humans had not aimed to dominate, but their work spoke for itself, forcing respect and fear in equal measure. Diplomatic channels continued to operate, but the tone had shifted. Empires that once demanded tribute and obedience now sent careful, respectful messages. The language of threats was replaced with questions, requests, and attempts to understand the humans' intentions. It became clear that the warship's presence had created a new reality, one where traditional measures of power no longer applied. The galaxy had to adjust to the idea that strength could exist without aggression. That influence could be asserted through capability rather than conquest. Scientists and engineers across the stars began studying the warship from a distance. They analyzed its energy patterns, movement algorithms, and countermeasures, hoping to learn something about its construction and purpose. Every attempt revealed more of humanity's ingenuity, yet none of it offered a way to overcome or threaten the ship. It was a puzzle of unmatched complexity, a reminder that humans had thought of every contingency. The galaxy could see the depth of strategy, the meticulous planning, and the patience that went into every detail, as the days turned into weeks. The psychological effect of the warship became apparent. Crews who had once been confident now doubted themselves. Commanders reconsidered strategies, alliances shifted, and some empires began withdrawing to fortified positions. The humans had not fired a single weapon, yet their influence was undeniable. They had created a situation where the very act of existing had shifted power and rewritten expectations. Attempts to provoke a response failed repeatedly. Fleets moved closer, scanning and signaling. Yet the ship remained calm, patient, and unyielding. It did not attack. It did not retreat. Its presence alone became a statement. Every empire understood instinctively that this was not a display of arrogance. It was a demonstration of capability, of resolve, and of the potential for humans to act decisively if pushed. The galaxy had under us. Civilians across the galaxy watched with a mix of awe and anxiety. Children learned about the humans' patience and ingenuity in schools. Adults debated whether the emergence of the warship was a blessing or a threat. Philosophers argued about the nature of power and restraint, while historians noted that no other civilization had demonstrated influence in such a subtle, controlled way. The humans had achieved something unprecedented. They had become a force that could not be ignored without acting in overt aggression. Some fleets attempted to probe the warship again, hoping for a reaction or to force a move. Every attempt failed. The humans on Earth had designed the ship to observe, to control situations without unnecessary destruction, and to act only if provoked in a serious way. Every failure reinforced the lesson. Brute force was meaningless against intelligence, strategy, and patience combined. The galaxy began to recognize that humans had created a new form of power, one that could redefine how civilizations interacted forever. Within the warship, the crew worked silently, maintaining systems, monitoring fleets, and assessing potential threats. They knew that showing restraint was as important as demonstrating capability. Every action was calculated, every response measured. The ship itself became a symbol not just of technology, but of the humans' approach to the universe. Cautious, strategic, and unyielding when necessary. The galaxy began to understand that this was not a weapon designed to destroy, but a force designed to preserve humanity's ability to survive. No matter the odds, by the end of this phase, the galaxy had changed. Empires that once assumed superiority now questioned every decision. Fleet commanders realized that traditional measures of strength were no longer sufficient. Civilians and leaders alike came to respect the humans' intelligence, strategy, and restraint. The warship had proven that a single act, carefully executed, could change perceptions, reshape alliances, and command respect without firing a single shot. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. Power could be quiet, patient, and unyielding, and when it appeared, the world would never be the same again. The story of the warship's first active demonstration spread rapidly. Every historian, strategist, and philosopher began recording the event as a turning point. The humans had arrived not with conquest, but with an undeniable presence that demanded attention. They had changed the rules without aggression, proving that preparation, patience, and intelligence could alter the balance of power in ways no fleet or empire had imagined. The warship remained in space, silent, but its impact was louder than any weapon ever fired, as the galaxy tried to recover from the shock of the warship's appearance and the first encounters. More information slowly began to surface. Analysts, historians, and scientists studying Earth's history discovered that the humans had not built this warship overnight. Nor had it been a sudden leap in technology. The ship was the culmination of generations of knowledge, planning, and preparation, stretching back hundreds of years. Earth had anticipated threats, not for conquest, for survival. The warship was designed with patience, observation, and defense in mind. It was not built to dominate other civilizations, nor to claim territory. Its creators had studied the stars and the behavior of other civilizations. Its understanding that the universe was unpredictable and often hostile. Every system, every calculation, every weapon and countermeasure reflected this understanding. The galaxy had assumed that Earth's conflicts were local and primitive, failing to see that humans had been quietly preparing for the moment when they might need to stand alone. This revelation changed everything. For decades, civilizations had underestimated Earth, seeing only the surface chaos and political infighting. They had assumed that humans were incapable of cooperation on the scale needed for interstellar engineering. But the warship proved that humans could unite when necessary. Combining intellect, creativity, and patience in ways that no empire had expected, the galaxy began to see a pattern. Humans were not reckless, but adaptive. They had a long memory, a capacity to learn from every failure, and a determination to endure. Once the warship had demonstrated its ability to control fleets without destruction, questions arose about the motivation behind its construction. Earth did not demand tribute or control. It did not issue ultimatums. Instead, the ship's presence was a silent statement. Humanity would survive, and the galaxy should recognize that fact. Civilizations that had long assumed dominance began to reassess their strategies. The lesson was clear. Raw power was not enough to guarantee security or respect. Intelligence, foresight, and resilience were just as vital as more information became public. The galaxy learned about Earth's centuries-long efforts to prepare for unforeseen dangers. The warship was not the result of a single generation or a sudden breakthrough. It had been designed over decades, improved with each passing year, incorporating lessons from natural disasters, conflicts, and technological innovation. Its systems were designed not only to defend, but also to observe, adapt, and influence without aggression. It was a machine built for both survival and subtle deterrence. A reflection of human values, diplomatic relations shifted rapidly. Leaders who had once dismissed Earth as a minor power began to approach with caution. They sent emissaries not to demand surrender or submission, but to understand the humans' intentions. Questions arose about the ethical and strategic principles guiding Earth's actions. Observers noted that the humans had not sought glory or dominance. They had acted from necessity and foresight. The warship was not a tool of conquest, but a reminder that some civilizations could achieve influence through strategy, rather than violence. As fleets continued to regroup, scientists and engineers attempted to analyze the warship more deeply. Every probe, every scan, every theoretical model revealed something new about human ingenuity. The ship's technology was advanced, yes, but what impressed observers most was its design philosophy. Humans had built a vessel capable of protecting themselves while minimizing harm to others. Its countermeasures were precise, its intelligence adaptive, and its systems sustainable. The galaxy realized that Earth had created a new paradigm of power, one that relied on patience, intelligence, and foresight rather than overwhelming force. Meanwhile, civilians across multiple systems absorbed the lessons of the humans' approach. Journalists reported not just on the ship's capabilities, but on the history and reasoning behind it. Stories circulated about generations of humans quietly studying space, solving problems, and preparing for threats that may never have come. The narrative shifted from fear to respect. Humans were seen as more than survivors. They were planners, thinkers, and strategists who had prepared for a universe that could be both beautiful and deadly. Political leaders faced a new dilemma. Traditional approaches to diplomacy, war, and negotiation no longer applied. They could not rely solely on fleets or alliances to maintain influence. The presence of Earth and its warship forced a reconsideration of strategy. Leaders realized that underestimating a civilization with foresight and resilience could be catastrophic. The humans had proven that patience and intelligence could outweigh size, numbers, and firepower. Historians began to document the event as a turning point. Earth had not arrived as a conqueror, but as a reminder of what preparation, unity, and intelligence could achieve. The warship had acted as a mirror, showing the galaxy the limitations of arrogance and the value of restraint. For centuries, civilizations had relied on displays of power to assert dominance. The humans showed that influence could be asserted silently, without destruction, and that respect could be earned through capability rather than aggression. In quiet discussions within the warship, the crew reflected on the galaxy's reaction. They had anticipated fear, curiosity, and misinterpretation. They had expected that their presence would disrupt assumptions and provoke thought. And they were correct. The humans understood that demonstrating capability without aggression was a powerful lesson in itself. They had created not just a ship, but a message. Humanity is capable, patient, and prepared, and it will not be ignored, as weeks turned into months. The warship continued to monitor the galaxy, responding only when necessary. Its presence encouraged caution, reflection, and diplomacy. Civilizations began to approach Earth with a mix of respect and caution, sending observers rather than armies. Treaties and alliances were reconsidered. The galaxy had learned that power could take many forms, and that humans had mastered a form that required patience, intelligence, and restraint. By the end of this period, the truth behind the warship was clear. Earth had not sought to dominate. It had prepared for survival, and in doing so, had taught the galaxy a lesson about foresight, strategy, and endurance. Civilizations began to understand that underestimating humans was a mistake that could no longer be repeated. The warship had not only changed perceptions of Earth, but had reshaped the entire galaxy's approach to power, influence, and survival. The story of the warship's origin and purpose spread rapidly, influencing scholars, strategists, and civilians alike. The humans had demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and resilience could achieve what fleets and empires could not. They had created a presence that commanded respect, inspired caution, and redefined what it meant to be powerful. The galaxy was learning that true strength was not always visible, but it was undeniable, and it could emerge from the most unexpected places. The warship remained a silent sentinel, a symbol of human foresight and determination, reshaping the galaxy without firing a single weapon. 7. The galaxy had been changed forever by the appearance of Earth's warship. Empires that once acted with confidence and certainty now moved with caution. Each decision weighed against the possibility that humans could respond in ways that no one could predict. The warship had not sought conflict, yet it had rewritten the rules of engagement across multiple systems. Power, the galaxy realized, could take forms that were subtle, strategic, and quiet, yet still unshakable, as fleets withdrew to fortified positions. Governments began sending cautious envoys to Earth. They no longer demanded submission or tribute. They sought understanding. The humans received these envoys not with arrogance, but with careful diplomacy. They explained that their warship was not a weapon of conquest, but a safeguard, designed to protect their planet and ensure the survival of their people. Every word reinforced what the galaxy had already seen. Humans acted out of necessity and foresight, not ambition. Historians and scholars began to analyze the events as a turning point. Centuries of galactic history had taught civilizations to measure power by size, firepower, and influence. Earth had challenged every assumption, showing that strategy, patience, and the ability to endure could achieve results that brute force could not. The warship was a symbol of this new understanding, a demonstration that power could be quiet, precise, and thoughtful. Civilizations that had once been rivals or enemies now found themselves reconsidering old alliances and treaties. Fleets that had intended to challenge Earth now recalculated their positions, wary of provoking a response that could disable entire armadas without a single casualty. Diplomats debated not about resources or territory, but about respect, recognition, and understanding. The galaxy was learning to measure strength differently. Seeing that humans had mastered a form of power that was as much about restraint as it was about capability, the warship continued to hover silently, observing, monitoring, and waiting. Its presence alone was enough to maintain balance. No empire sought to provoke it further, knowing that any miscalculation could be catastrophic. The humans on Earth had built something that represented not just survival, but a philosophy, that influence and control could be exerted without aggression, and that intelligence and patience could achieve what fleets of warships could not. Journalists and commentators broadcast stories about the warship's impact. They describe fleets immobilized without violence, diplomats reconsidering strategies, and citizens across multiple systems grappling with a new reality. The narrative shifted from fear to respect, from curiosity to cautious admiration. People debated whether humans had shown restraint because of morality or strategy, or perhaps a combination of both. The result, however, was undeniable. Earth had altered the galaxy's perception of power in strategic meetings across the stars. Leaders acknowledged that the warship had set a new standard. They could no longer rely on traditional methods of intimidation or force. The humans had demonstrated that preparation, foresight, and a willingness to act decisively when necessary could surpass even the largest fleets. Empires began to rethink their investments, their military doctrines, and their diplomatic approaches. All influenced by the knowledge, humans were now a factor that could not be ignored. The warship's presence also sparked reflection among scientists and engineers. They studied its systems not to replicate them, but to understand the philosophy behind them. Every countermeasure, every adaptive technology, every mechanism was built with thought and intention. It was not just engineering. It was a reflection of human problem-solving, patience, and the desire to survive without causing unnecessary harm. Observers began to recognize that the warship represented more than a celestial achievement, embodied human values and foresight. Meanwhile, the ordinary citizens of the galaxy absorbed the lessons of the humans' actions. Children learned about the importance of strategy, intelligence, and restraint. Adults debated what it meant to be powerful and responsible. Philosophers and ethicists wrote about the implications of a civilization that could command influence through preparation and patience rather than aggression. Across planets and star systems, the story of Earth's warship became a reminder that strength could take many forms, and that true power might be invisible until it was needed. Months passed, and the warship remained a silent sentinel. Empires gradually adapted to this new reality, restructuring alliances and reconsidering conflicts. The humans never sought recognition, but their actions earned it nonetheless. They had arrived not to conquer, but to ensure survival, to demonstrate capability, and to show that the galaxy could no longer overlook their presence. Every system, every fleet, and every government began to acknowledge that humanity had reshaped interstellar relations without firing a single shot. Historians recorded that this period marked the beginning of a new era. Earth had changed the way civilizations approached diplomacy, warfare, and power. The warship was remembered not as a weapon of destruction, but as a symbol of foresight, patience, and strategic intelligence. It showed that a single, well-prepared civilization could influence the galaxy without seeking domination, teaching lessons that would be studied for generations. As time went on, the warship eventually disappeared as quietly as it had arrived. No announcements, no ceremonies, no celebrations marked its departure. Yet its impact remained. Fleets were more cautious, alliances more thoughtful, and civilizations more aware of the power of patience and strategy. The galaxy had learned that humans did not seek thrones, conquests, or empires, but that they were capable of reshaping the balance of power simply by existing with determination and intelligence. The story of the warship became a legend, not for the battles it fought, but for the restraint it showed, for the influence it wielded without violence, and for the clarity it brought to a universe that had underestimated a single planet. Humanity had proven that survival, preparation, thoughtful action could achieve what aggression and intimidation could not. The galaxy had changed, and the humans remained a quiet but undeniable force, forever altering the perception of power and the nature of influence across the stars. By the end of this period, the galaxy recognized that true strength lay not only in weapons or fleets, but in intelligence, patience, and the ability to act decisively when necessary. The humans had created a presence that demanded respect, inspired caution, and reshaped interstellar politics without seeking glory. Their warship was gone, but its lessons endured. The galaxy had been shown that one civilization, prepared, patient, and resolute, could influence the universe in ways no one had imagined, leaving behind a legacy of strategy, restraint, and quiet power that would never be forgotten.